Hello, I'm Hilary Robertson.
Welcome to episode 29 of Harmonious World. I'm delighted this week to be joined by sax player Jane Ira Bloom, who has recorded a very interesting album with bass player Mark Helias. It's called Some Kind of Tomorrow. Mark and Jane came together during lockdown remotely. And one of the things they said was, we just had to play to connect with each other across a distance in whatever way we could. There is something very raw about this music, and it is simply stunning. So I hope you enjoy our conversation. Hi.
Hi, Hilary. Nice to meet
Jane.
you.
Yeah, you too.
This is so amazing.
Isn't it? Oh, do you know what? It's just incredible.
I've been doing this in my teaching, so I know about Zoom now,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we all have come on so far, haven't we, in this last year? It's incredible.
Learning curve's been amazing, isn't it?
Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, this is great. This is amazing that we're talking to each other across the ocean.
It's incredible, isn't it? And when I started this podcast, I had no idea that this is episode 29. And it's just, I've spoken to so many amazing people, and I've listened to music that I probably wouldn't have listened to otherwise. And I hope that I've helped my listeners to do the same.
Isn't it amazing when the upside of the fact that we're all, available is that we are available also to connect,
Yeah.
So many musicians, are more available, to both, play and speak now, with one another on Zoom.
Yeah. Because ordinarily you'd be sitting in airports and traveling, and if you're sitting on a tour bus or on an aeroplane, you can't chat with people, you can't do an interview properly. So
No. Yeah, we've got a little downtime, so we can actually connect,
Exactly. Well, and I'm hoping that maybe when it comes to you touring over here, or if I come over to the States, that we can connect in person and do a second one face to face.
Absolutely. That's the whole point. The whole point.
Exactly.
Although
Yeah.
I must admit, it's been a long time since I've been to London. I think my last performance there was at Wigmore Hall a long time ago with
Right.
great trumpet player Kenny Wheeler.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
That's a nice memory. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. What sort of band was that? What setup did you have?
I brought Rufus Reed with me, and I had
Oh.
been playing around that time with Kenny, so we were, playing some music that we had worked on, and John Taylor came and played
Oh.
piano with us. So it was a beautiful quartet, but no drums. Perfect for Wigmore Hall.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's such a great space. It's I've heard so many different genres of music in there, and it's just so intimate. You feel so close to the audience, and to the audience feels
Oh
close to the performers.
yeah, and there are a lot of great ghosts in that room. A lot of great music's been
Oh,
played in there.
absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So let's talk about Some Kind of Tomorrow,
hmm
because it's just come out. It's one of the most interesting albums in terms of it feels very, very raw and personal. So tell me how you decided to do this.
It's you nailed it. It's about as personal as it gets. Two musicians who really just felt like we had to find some way to play, and it didn't matter. I mean, myself and bassist Mark Helias had been playing together for many, many years. So we're old bandmates and stuff. But when we came to this idea of trying to find one another over the internet and try to play, it was like we were almost, it was like euphoric. I remember after the first session, he and I were almost giddy. We felt the need to play with each other so badly. And you have to remember, we were picking it out of the air. Normally, when we do concerts, we have compositions that we rehearse and play and improvise on and such. None of that. Everything like completely out the window.
Wow.
All we did was play. We didn't even talk.
Wow. So, one thing I'm curious about is the titles. So did the titles come first or the music come first, and which way round?
Music came first, and then I've always been kind of a lateral thinker. I don't know where these titles come from, but I pretty much labeled most of them afterwards. But the music came first. Yep.
Right. And did you play, so did you have Zoom and did you just play together at the same time, or how did that work?
Well, all right, here's how it works. You use Zoom to actually listen to each other and play with each other. But you don't record on Zoom, because if you did, then you would hear how much delay there is between the two of you. In fact, when you actually play in the reel, it feels like it's close to what you're used to, right? But what we actually did was I recorded what I was playing separately in my room on a separate file, and then Mark is 98 miles away in his office studio, and he recorded what he did, and then he took the two files and lined them up correctly.
Ah, right.
So that the time relationship was correct. Yeah. The time relationship, if you were to listen to it on Zoom, it wouldn't sound like it's lined up correctly.
Exactly.
But when you talk to play with each other, it sounds okay,
Right. Zoom is weird like that, isn't it? And I think people don't necessarily understand that.
Hillary, I don't even understand it.
Well, no.
Because look at it. I mean, how, Mark and I were, Mark Helias, the bassist who I recorded with, we wondered, how the heck did we do this? Because there is a delay, but something went on in our minds and our creativity that either we compensated or, it's kind of like Twilight Zone stuff. I don't know how we did it either.
Right.
Kind of like I was telling Mark the other day, I think it's like a phantom limb. You know how your brain,
oh yeah,
it recreates something that it thinks is there.
Right.
That must have been how I perceived the bass and how he perceived the saxophone.
But you've obviously played together for a long time, so you know each other's style, and you perhaps can anticipate a little bit what.
Oh, more than a little bit. Absolutely. Yeah. That improvisers who share a certain vocabulary over long periods of time, there's a lot of magic that goes on like that.
Right. What have you worked on with Mark before?
Normally, we played together in many settings, but for example, many of my recordings, you'll hear Mark playing on jazz recordings that, I'm the composer, and you'll hear pieces of music where, it's what the bass's role and the saxophone's role is. And then there's improvisation, but it's much more compositionally structured, This was like throwing it to the wind. Really.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that we found out how much kind of narrative was really inside us. Even when we make it up, it's inside us.
Yeah. One of my favorite pieces was Drift and the bowed bass.
Oh, yeah.
That's just beautiful. And so there's a composition element, obviously the improvisation, is very direct and immediate, but there's obviously a thought process that goes into him going, I'm going to bow this.
Oh, yeah. And God, isn't that gorgeous sound on the bass? He's playing just a beautiful instrument, and he just plays it so beautifully, particularly his arco playing, the bow.
Yeah.
It's special. If nothing else, the music is a testament to each of our sounds, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Given that we're not playing, like snappy tunes or things like that. No. We tried very hard to record ourselves with the very best quality that we could, so you could feel the timbre of a sound and hear the emotion that's in it. It's not about a lot of notes. It's about the feeling of the sound.
Yeah, absolutely. And your sound together, I mean, soprano sax and string bass, that you would think that they wouldn't work together, but there's a meeting in the middle, and there's a coming together of those two very different sounds, which is, I'm waving my hands around, which won't help the audience when I do another podcast, but Do you know what I mean? The upper register of the soprano and the lower of the bass, they just sit beautifully together.
I've always had a passion for bass, acoustic bass. I just love the instrument. But it's because, the instrument I play, it's very high,
Yeah.
and it's yin yang, you got the high, you got to have the low. It has to, complement each other. And I think that's what the two instruments do.
Yes, I agree. And one of the things it reminded me of, and I don't know why, because the music's very different, but in terms of the sound, is the Jerry Mulligan, Chet Baker, baritone sax, trumpet.
Oh,
Do you know what I mean? That
sure. Nice. Yeah. Oh, nice. Nice. Nice
well,
to think about. Yeah. Nice to think about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's all about how the two musical minds meet. It could be different players and you might have a different sensation about it. But I think, Mark and I are listening deep. We're listening
Yeah.
deep. I don't know how
Yeah.
else to say it.
No, that's right. And you have a connection. There's a musical connection between you as you're playing, clearly.
Yeah, and you have to remember, we've both of us have been around the block a bit. We're both pretty seasoned composer improvisers. So, it's not like when you're younger, you got to play a lot of notes and you got to play loud, fast, and high.
Yes.
This was an honesty about where we were in our musical selves and allowing that to be expressed unabashedly. Completely.
Yeah.
It's almost completely naked, really.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's not an easy thing to come to. Early on when you're a younger musician, but somehow Mark and I felt completely at ease with each other and the sound.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, talking about the soprano saxophone, your work, you have a history, you have a repertoire, you've done a lot of playing. And I've always liked your sound. I think your sound is just beautiful. There's something about your soprano sax playing that is really special. Before you, my experience of jazz soprano sax was Coltrane. And I think you do what he did, which is, you don't need to play millions of notes because that instrument just sings.
Well, it's a funny member of the saxophone family, and I
Yeah.
always tell people, it has a lot of challenges to it particularly about playing in tune. So I always
Oh,
tell
yeah.
people when you're playing the soprano saxophone, it takes a while to learn how to finesse the thing. In other words, to get your voice to come through the instrument as opposed to the instrument dictating to you how it should sound, kind of nasal, which is a very common sound you hear. It takes a while to get your voice to come through it.
You've obviously done that.
Oh, and I love the instrument. I just love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Am I right in thinking that your soprano is silver?
No, it's brass.
Oh, okay. Okay. I don't know why I had a vision of you standing holding a silver one, but that must be a something. I don't know where that came from.
I do have a number of horns, and I have a backup horn that is silver, but my number one horn is brass.
Okay.
It must have been the lighting, Hillary.
It must have been, absolutely. Yeah. Can I, because I'm a sax player, can I just ask you what your setup is? What your horn is, what your mouthpiece is, that sort of thing?
It's very boring. I've been playing the same horn since I was almost a teenager. A Selmer Mark 6 soprano saxophone that has the high F sharp on it. But I think I got that horn like it's the serial number is late 60s. That's about
Right.
the era of that horn. And I've been, it's just what you get used to.
Yeah.
If you've been playing the same thing, it's like a part of your body.
Sure.
Same horn, and it's been repaired and beautifully taken care of by great craftsmen of the saxophone, Emilio Lyons, the famous saxophone repairman. Those are his pads and everything on
Right.
it. And the mouthpiece for anybody who wants to talk deep dish saxophone talk. It's an old Selmer rubber D.
Oh,
Again,
right.
circa 1960s. That's how old it is.
Yeah.
They call it a classic or something.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's really interesting. I play baritone sax,
mhm,
and I've got an old Selma Mark 6. Mine's 50 in the 50s, late
mhm,
50s, and it's
uh-huh.
just beautiful. And mine's the same, that I have a pet uh, repairer who I wouldn't let anybody else touch it. You
There
know,
you go. There you
yeah,
go.
yeah. You gotta treat these things with care, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like the instrument is it becomes part of your body in a way. It's so you're so comfortable and accustomed to it. You know.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Mm.
Right. So, Some Kind of Tomorrow came about because of lockdown.
Hmm.
And what was your initial, so were you sort of touring and gigging and all of a sudden it stopped, or how did your lockdown start?
Yeah. First of
Yeah.
all, I'm in New York City and I stopped taking the subway. That's the first thing that
Right.
happened on March 11th. Uh, and then, yes, my gigs got canceled. Mark's gigs got canceled. All of a sudden, everything that we had planned was taken away. You know, was gone. So
Yeah.
I did continue. I teach at the New School for Jazz and Contemporary Music in New York City. So I was continuing to teach students virtually. But yes, it was an abrupt change of what musically you could do. So you just had to get creative. You had to think of something, you know. We had
Yeah.
to think of something. And to be honest, Hillary, we didn't Mark and I weren't planning on making a recording. We just played. And we over several days over the course of the year, we just get on, let's play some, let's play some. And we recorded. We weren't even thinking about making records. And then finally, at the end of the fall, it came around. Mark said, I've been listening back to these recordings. They sound pretty good. Maybe we should let some people listen to this. And that's how it happened. I'm telling you, it wasn't like we're going to make an album. It wasn't like that at all.
Right.
It's
So the music came out of the need to play and to play together.
That's it in a nutshell. That's it
Right.
completely. That's it.
Right.
Absolutely. That's it. It was a surprise to us listening back to it. To be honest.
Right. So then obviously it's about going through, and Mark did all the mastering and everything,
Yes,
didn't
he's
he?
quite skillful in the engineering. Yeah, he did a great
Yeah.
job, I thought. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Mm.
So it's a beautiful collection, and it almost feels like it sums up something about lockdown and this, what's going to be a year of our lives. Let's hope it's not too much more than a year.
Hmm.
And it's a moment in time, isn't it?
It has to be, and as all great improvised music must be, it must reflect and react to its own time, whether we like it or not. It's what's real, and some of the best music that we dearly love and listen to on treasured records, on LPs and stuff. That those were moments of those musicians' live performances. Don't you remember some of your favorite live recordings?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Some of the best ones the musicians will tell you they didn't even know the mics were on.
No, no. There are some classics, aren't there? And actually, a lot of the classic recordings that people come back to over and over again. Things like Ella Fitzgerald singing Mac the Knife. It's one of my favorite versions of Mac the Knife, and probably of most other, vocals. And that's her singing live and forgetting the words, and and just going with the flow. And it couldn't have happened any other time.
No, it's the real moment, and
Yeah.
with all the stuff that must go on in your head about the recording and da da da. When you forget about these microphones, that's when the best stuff happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, perhaps that's why this is such a great album, because you didn't think it was going to be an album at all.
No, no, it was just a heightened sense of reaching out to the other musician. I mean, if you could describe it any way, if anything, that this kind of remote way of connecting to musicians is it's kind of what they describe like when you're sensory deprived. There's some other muscle or kinesthetic thing that goes on in your mind, in your body, that you reach out to the other with your ears, with your mind, even stronger. I don't know how else to describe that, but it's
Right.
it's intense. It's almost like a more focused kind of listening, I think.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So how has lockdown been for you? So obviously musically it's been completely different, but life in general, obviously New York City has completely shut down and you know.
I mean, my world has gotten very small. I mean, fortunately, because I do live in New York City, I can walk. I can walk 50 blocks, or I can walk in the park, or walk to where I have to go. And the economy of all the stores and the groceries and things that are right near me are still alive and thriving. So, it's like I live in a small outpost or a small community in New York City. Um,
Well,
it's just how we have to handle things right now.
right,
Mhm.
exactly. And have you started making plans for what next?
Oh yeah, I've got plans. I mean, I'm just crossing my fingers and vaccinations coming soon, I have a project that I actually got a grant to do, and I've written a lot of music. I've been writing a lot of music in this downtime. And this is music inspired by a very famous New York photographer by the name of Berenice Abbott. And
Okay.
if and she's worth checking out if you don't know much about her work. But this album, which I've proposed to make a series of immersive, uh, very high quality audio recordings in surround sound, or immersive sound, we call it,
Oh yeah.
uh, of duets with myself and some very prominent women improvisers and world music musicians. And if we're all vaccinated by the summer, I'm hoping we can, somehow get in a space and record these things.
That sounds amazing.
I'm looking forward to, physically being with the other musicians.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I wanted to talk to you about First Canvas because it's only a minute long. Why is it so short? I mean, it's beautiful and it's a great end to the album, but how did it happen?
It was actually, I think, a track that we recorded at the beginning of one of our sessions. And somehow it found its way to the end of the recording when we sequenced things. So it's rather strange to call it First Canvas. But sometimes the magic happens and sometimes it doesn't. But sometimes the magic happens and it's short.
Yeah,
And so we just said, it's interesting. It's just concise. So we
yeah,
decided to hold on to it.
right. And it's nice. It's very rare for, I mean, jazz musicians, we do tend to go on a bit and it's very easy to kind of keep going chorus after chorus, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And but this is the exact opposite of that. It's as you say, it's concise. It's 1 minute of pure improvisation in this with this duo.
Sometimes it just takes a minute to say what you're going to say. And if you're comfortable with that, you say it and it's over.
Brilliant. Okay. Right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
And
pleasure talking with you. Pleasure talking with you.
brilliant. And wish you all the best for coming out of lockdown. And I'll definitely check out that new project. It sounds brilliant.
Oh, great. And yeah, send everybody to Bandcamp and go download this project. I hope you enjoy.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of Harmonious World. It was such a delight to interview Jane. And obviously, I'll put all the links in the show notes so that you can go to Bandcamp and find that album. So, thank you for joining me once again on Harmonious World. Please do hit subscribe, send me a review, buy me a coffee. There are all the links on the top of the Harmonious World Buzzsprout page. And I'm looking forward to interviewing some more exciting musicians in the course of the rest of 2021. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.